Hey there, welcome. Have we got a great one for you today? Today is going to be what do you do after getting your Ancestry DNA results? I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to matches and to build out your family tree. So this is going to be rivetingly awesome, okay? So again, welcome. My name is Franklin and this is the Family History Foundation, the past relative to the future, and you can check us over at familyhistoryfoundation.com for more stuff, for just the full articles and a plethora of more goodness. So make sure you like and subscribe to support family history and genealogy, and check the description below for more genealogy goodies. Okay, let's get into it. What to do after getting your Ancestry DNA results. This is a 8-step guide to matches, to finding your matches, understanding what's going on, and build out your family tree. So this is kind of going to be in 2 parts, right? Understanding your ethnicity estimates and all the cool things Ancestry has to offer in terms of interpreting your DNA results, all of the tools available over at Ancestry. And then the second half really is going to be about understanding how to build out trees using the tree function. Because on Ancestry, what the glorious part about Ancestry is that not only can you test your DNA results there, but you can also use those DNA results to find matches and to use their millions and millions and millions deep records to build out a family tree and use all of that to connect. So it's like a one-stop shop. Greatest place ever. Okay. So, hey, you finally received that long-awaited email from AncestryDNA. You click it, and there it is, your ethnicity estimate, colorful regional maps, and a list of DNA matches who might be distant cousins, or the key to unlocking generations of mystery. But the excitement might quickly turn to overwhelm. So what do you do now, right? Because you've got all of this stuff, analysis paralysis, I call it. Well, in this guide, I'm going to show you how to alleviate that and what to do after getting your Ancestry DNA results, step by step. Whether you're brand new to family history or you're already knee-deep in clues, you'll learn how to make sense of all this stuff, your matches, and build a powerful family tree using all of Ancestry's best tools. So let's turn your DNA to a legacy. Okay, so ethnicity estimates. This is really an ongoing thing, okay? Now, Ancestry is great, as are other platforms, because it breaks it down, puts it on a map, color codes things, and tells you where your family history comes from. And this technology is ever evolving because there's always new things that show up. There's always new percentages being added, and it's really just an amazing tool that you can use to sort of gauge yourself, who you are, where you come from, okay? Places you may not even have known. Now, I sort of always disclaim, all of these small percentages like that are below 5% or less, you always want to investigate them because they have varying degrees of actual meaning, actual relevance. And go over to Family History Foundation. I've written a bunch of articles on how to interpret those lower percentage rates and what they mean. Or just go on Ancestry and click on those things, the information tab. It'll say, well, they may be relevant or they may be not relevant, but that's not for today. That's a whole different discussion. Okay, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it can become one. Yeah. So, so before we even jump into interpreting DNA results on Ancestry, all of that's sort of predicated on the fact that you actually have an account over at Ancestry. So if you don't have one and you're not there yet, you would like to go over to Ancestry.com and log in and create an account there. You can create one for free. And then from there, you can sort of do a DNA test. So all of this, what we're talking about here is if you're not sort of up to speed on that yet, going and doing a DNA test over there. And even if you haven't, this is great because this might actually get you to do one, right? Just look at all the stuff that you can do with this, and maybe you'll be inspired to go and create an account. Okay, so So that being said, your DNA results will show information such as, and not limited to this list, is not an exhaustive list, but things that you can get are percentages that reflect your DNA's similarity to people in reference populations around the world. So what percentages are you, right? Are you English? Are you Irish? Are you Swiss German? Whatever, Italian? It'll tell you these percentages, which are ranges actually, okay? But they are actually ranges, like from 30 to 40% or whatever, okay? Ethnicity inheritance, and you can see how much you inherited from each parent, right? Which comes from your paternal side or your maternal side, okay? Which is kind of cool. And more of a recent innovation on Ancestry. You know, a few years ago that really didn't exist. You had to sort of, you know, understand your own family history to get that. And my disclaimer is always, when you're looking at these ethnicity estimates, they're not absolute. They're not written in stone. They will change over time, okay? But you can also connect to DNA communities. And this is kind of cool. And these are clusters that suggest where recent ancestors, and even a little bit farther back, may have lived. So for example, under a certain ethnic component, you might see a trend that says Ulster Irish in Pennsylvania and such, right? And I have settlers, and I have my own that tell your DNA story, which is kind of cool. Okay, so I'm using this screenshot that I've included on my article. You can get an idea of the several options when viewing your results. So if you check this out, you can choose from an array of things on your option. This is a screenshot from my Ancestry account, right? Showing the things you can get: your summary, your origins, matches, through lines, or traits, and much, much more. All useful tools when exploring what to do after you get your AncestryDNA results. I mean, truly, there's just a lot of things to play around with, and incredible. So any one of these, you know, links or menu options will take you to its own page that offers you even more options to choose from things, and we'll get into a few of those. Okay. So pro tip here: ethnicity estimates update over time, so check back occasionally for new insights. And this is a big deal, and this is just me, but I actually screenshot each update. Okay, and believe it or not, I have updates going back about 10 years. So every time I log on and they've updated, and they'll alert you when they update them, I just take a screenshot because they're all slightly different over time. Like if I did some like anthology of my AncestryDNA updates, they would look different over time. As technology progresses, reference populations get more robust. They can actually trace your DNA with a little bit more pinpoint accuracy as time goes on. So it's an invaluable tool for you to sort of keep track of that. And maybe you'll get more excited. Sometimes I'm like, oh, great, they actually put, you know, a little bit more of this percentage and less of that, which actually holds true to my actual sort of genetic genetics from my genealogy, family history, sort of, you know, what I do in genealogy. But again, due to the nature of autosomal DNA, you know, our DNA is not cut exactly in quarters, you know, like halves and quarters and percents. Your DNA and your relative's DNA can vary kind of greatly, almost from 80% to 20%, right? So you don't actually inherit 50-50 from your parents, literally. That can shift from 60% to 40%. Anyway, that's a whole nother sidebar conversation. And if you want, I have a link to Understanding Genetics on the Family History Foundation to really make sense of why and how autosomal DNA works and its random nature in inheritance. So step 2, dive into your DNA matches. So here's where the real adventure begins when thinking about what to do after getting your DNA results, okay? And you can dive into your matches, and these could be unknown cousins or even missing links to a family mystery. And I have many stories I can rattle off with respect to using AncestryDNA to actually connect down or connect through genealogical brick walls that I've had, because I can actually base estimates of like, well, this branch of the family I seem to have a stronger genetic connection, a proven genetic connection to, which makes my research sort of shift in that area, where now I'm going to research records along that line towards that ancestor or that potential ancestor versus somebody else. So it's an incredible sort of detective tool. It's like flipping on a light switch and saying, oh, okay, now I see what, the record trail maybe was not showing me right away, but now I can sort of dig with a little bit more confidence in that direction. Okay, so, and once you're in the matches section, you can search and explore by a bunch of categories, which to me is really, really fun. And again, I say this, I usually do genealogies on Saturday. Sometimes I'll just get into the DNA section and really just play around with searching through matches. And it can be overwhelming because your first order matches of like the closest range of centimorgans, like parents or siblings, there are a few of them. But as you get into second, third, fourth cousins, you will literally have 10 pages of matches, like hundreds of people. So you can get overwhelmed, but the potential to find something which can corroborate, your actual paper research, so to speak, that's huge. And that's where the sort of benefit lies in the matching process. Okay. Anyway, so there are a lot to explore. So you can explore by matches. You can explore by parent, right? Paternal, maternal side. You can explore your matches by ancestor using a search function. You can sort of go and dive deeper into place names or people by clusters, by locations, which is kind of cool. And these are all based on information inputted through your matches. So, it's really, really powerful. The ways, the methods, the avenues through which you can research. Okay. And there are also a few more goodies with it within each search function. So there's a lot to get to know. Okay. Including the following sorting options. Okay. So, and it can be kind of labyrinthy. It can become a labyrinth in a way, but again, you kind of have to look at it like the potential for avenues of research. Instead of having just one way to get to your destination, there's now 50 ways to get to your destination. How do you want to get there? Okay. So you can sort all of your matches by many different ways, but here are some of the most powerful ways: by close relatives, first or second cousins, and these are your best bets for identifying shared ancestors, through centimorgan overlaps. Okay. Shared matches, which help confirm which side of your family a DNA match belongs to. And the notes, you can add notes to each match if you go in there, and allow you to track clues as far as you research each match. And that is very important, as you're going to have a lot of matches. So I go and take the time to put notes into things, because you'll go back to certain clusters and go, wait, was that the same person I was looking at earlier? So you definitely want to do that. Okay. So how to use it, really just, based on what you see here, click on a match, view that person's public tree. If it's made public, you have to have it public. Look for shared surnames or locations, and use shared matches to create clusters of relatives. And you can use the search function within your matches to actually search by surnames, by trees. You can search by locations. Again, you can just say, with all the matches that I have, the thousands of them, how many actually list this surname? And you can type it in and boom, it comes up. Or how many of my ancestors existed in Tennessee or in California or in Oregon or in Washington or Maryland? Or you can use that for, say, what province in Germany, like maybe they're in Hanover, or maybe they're in Vilnius, Lithuania, or maybe they came from the town of Leicester in England, or whatever you want to do, or this small town in Italy, wherever that place is. Okay, you can search for locations, whoever has that listed. And so off you go. Okay, and then the other side of that is you can actually make contact with your matches, and you can just say, hey, we're a match, what do you have? You want to share information? Okay. So just explore and have fun with it is really what it comes down to. So step 3, use maps, communities, and birth locations. Now, your AncestryDNA dashboard includes powerful geographical tools. Your ethnicity map which is kind of where you start, right? It shows your regions tied to your genetic ancestry, which is the regions function, which I think is great. You know, I'm a visual person, I'm a map person, so looking at that just always gets me excited. Okay, communities, it tracks migration paths of groups from which you descend, which is called your journeys. Birth locations found in trees of your DNA matches. Yeah, so imagine when you're building your tree, you're putting birth locations. My mom's here, dad's here, grandparents here, great grandparents, right? And each generation, think about this, right? Each generation you go back doubles, right? So how many ancestors that is, right? Actually, within 10 generations, you have over 1,000 ancestors at that point, because each generation doubles as you go back. Okay, so and each time you're building somebody in your family tree, you're putting a location where they are, which gets fed into this database, and so people can search from where people came from. This is just absolutely astoundingly powerful. And everyday Ancestry is adding new features, so stay on the lookout for ever evolving options. Okay, so try comparing your DNA communities to those of your matches. Overlapping communities often point to a shared ancestor in that region. And if you look down here, you got summary origins, matches, traits, which is kind of a tool. I've written an article on DNA traits from Ancestry. It's semi-useful. It tells you kind of fun sort of things, but anyway, that's kind of a sidebar. Go over there, click on it, have fun with it. Or if you go over to Family History Foundation, you can read my article there. Just search for DNA traits, and it'll come up. Okay. So step 4, which is kind of optional, segment mapping and chromosome tools. Now, usually, like I think Family Tree DNA is the best place to go if you actually want to look at your chromosomes, like the whole, your DNA strand that tells you the bits of information about, how genetics are encoded. The rest of your, billions of pairs of DNA is not really useful in any sense of that. But if in terms of genetics, there's only a very small section, of your genetic code, your chromosomes, basically. But AncestryDNA has recently started to offer a chromosome browser. And you can still export and import, I believe, from other DNA sites, but it's not too bad, and it's now allowing you to see where certain segments come from your paternal side or maternal side, and you can do side-by-side comparisons to other matches, which, if you're into genetics or the science part of it, it'll help you understand things a little bit more. And I consider it optional. You don't really need to understand that in order to just build out your genealogy if your ultimate intent is to research, right? And create a family tree that's accurate and historical research to support that family tree. Okay, but it's helpful and useful in terms of through lines, but in terms of really digging into a chromosome browser, maybe not for everybody. Okay, more of an advanced sort of feature is what I would say. Okay, so now let's get to part 2. Now that you've explored all the tabs, all the menus and the options, which again, is going to be an ongoing thing as Ancestry always updates. But let's talk about building your tree on Ancestry, okay? Now that we understand the features, how do we integrate that? How do we combine what you've learned about your genetic history with a family tree and actual genealogy research? And when I say that, I mean digging for records and associating records with people and ancestors and understanding if information is viable or not, and whether to make the decision to include something in a family tree, because you have to understand that not all records are accurate. So how do you combine those? Well, let's start by building your tree on Ancestry. So you'll hear me, well, let's just phrase it this way. You'll not hear me tout the easy way to genealogy research on this site, okay? I say that to protect you because erroneous research leads to false assumptions and systematic misinformation, okay? you've been properly advised. That's me on my soapbox, okay? And I've written a ton of articles on FamilyHistoryFoundation.com on actually how to research and what is appropriate. You go right to the main page. On the top article, pinned to the top, is something called the Genealogy Research Guide, the one ultimate user-friendly beginner's guide to research, okay? Which is also for advanced users. It'll remind you of things that you should know, okay? So build your tree. So let's create your tree for free, okay? Go to the Trees tab, create and manage trees, start a new tree, and start with you, right? And then build your parents, grandparents, etc., etc. Use approximate dates and names, places if needed. Okay, you can use placeholders. You don't have to be exact, although you eventually want to be very exact with birth dates and places down to the county and state and country. But if you're not sure, just type in the state or the country or the province if you're outside the United States, or whatever the terminology is concomitant to that place, and just add things in. If you don't know the birth date of an ancestor, if it's maybe 15 March 1893, just write in March 1893 or 1893. And then when you go back and you find those records, then you update it, okay? But get something in there. Get your tree started, okay? Step 6, you can link your DNA matches to tree profiles, okay? And by the way, step 5 is going to be for the rest of your life. Okay, you will never finish your ancestry tree because it goes on and on and on, and you're going to add branches of the family and to relatives, and it's going to be a glorious, glorious thing that you're going to want to do forever for the sake of all of the future generations. Okay, step 6, link DNA matches to tree profiles. So when you find somebody, you can add the tree or link to person. Yeah, and then assign the correct person in your tree and add notes and tag them, okay? So when you find things, you can actually add them in, and Ancestry helps through something called through lines, and it can give you more accurate hints, okay? And, just a supporting thought, use DNA matches in your ancestry tree as corroboration to actual actual records research. Okay, so I say this because Ancestry will give you hints all day long. Okay, not all of them are accurate, right? They're just hints. Okay, they're not actual, hey, this is your ancestor. Okay, so you have to actually corroborate everything with actual research. Okay, so but you can use those links to tell you, right? So step 7, use hints and records to expand your tree, right? Now that you've built your tree, right, got in there and used some DNA suggestions to help start your tree growing, you can use hints. The hints section is amazing, right? Once you build out a profile page for your ancestor, right, when you add people in there, Ancestry populates that page for you with what it has and what you have. And then you can use the hints tab to gain more. Not all the hints are accurate or guaranteed, but you can use it to explore records and expand your tree. So really, really amazing technology. Like Ancestry is just like, imagine walking through a garden path and every brick is just laid right in front of you as you're walking. It's just like it's building it out for you as you're moving. So it'll tell you things like census records, birth and marriage certificates, immigration and naturalization forms. You can click review and you can confirm or reject anything that you want. You can put it on layaway and say, well, I'll get back to this, okay? And you can start building from there. I've rejected things from hints only later to come back and say, oh, that's the thing I was actually wanting to include because now I've corroborated it, and then I add it in. And once you add in something from a hint, it'll add it to your ancestor's timeline and then give you little lines that connect everything together as you click on bits of information. I mean, it's quite powerful, okay? Anybody that's been on Ancestry and using trees, listening to this, watching this, knows how powerful it is, okay? And maybe if you have, leave a comment below and say it's powerful, and just sort of encourage others out there. And leave your experiences with it, because I think newer people maybe that have not quite been familiar with Ancestry or thinking about it, I think it's encouraging for others to hear success stories, you know, and sort of warnings and say, hey, do this or don't do this, okay? And, you know, if you want to dig into records, I have to say that you will need an Ancestry subscription by this point if you really want to get into the records. And there are multiple options, and you can explore them in my article, Why Ancestry.com is the #1 genealogy website for building your forever family tree. Okay, read this article. And I also have a promo offer for AncestryDNA World Explorer, a 3-month membership trial. And I will, yeah, this is something good to charge to do. And I have an affiliate relationship with this offer, just letting you know, but you're not going to pay anything off of it, but it'll help promote Ancestry, and that exists there. So supporting thought, hey, read all of my Ancestry tree builder tutorials and general best practices for research right here on Family History Foundation. There's no better starting point for what to do after getting your AncestryDNA results. So quick quiz time. Let's take a quick quiz, as we like to do. I like to ask you guys questions. See if you're paying attention. See how far you've gotten, right? See if you're digesting this material. So here is a 5-question quiz to discover your genealogy style, okay? All right, question 1. Actually, sorry, I'm only going to ask you 3 questions. Oh boy. Okay, so here you go, 3 questions. When you get your DNA results, I love you guys for following me this far. What do you first look at? Okay, when you get your DNA results, what do you look at first? Okay, A, your ethnicity estimate, B, your DNA matches, or C, your tree building tools. Okay, got your answer? Great. Question number 2. Your ideal family history Saturday looks like A, reading historical newspapers, B, exploring maps and locations, C, interviewing relatives. Okay, got your answer? Great. Number 3, find a new second cousin match. Ooh, you found a new match. You what? You A, email them with excitement. Hey, I'm here. B, compare shared matches and say, look, we got all this in common. Or C, you add them to your cluster list. Okay, here are the results aggregated for you. If you are mostly A's, you are the explorer, driven by curiosity. Great. Mostly B's, you are the analyst. You love patterns and proof. Mostly C's, you are the archivist. You live for documentation. Okay, which one are you? Comment down below. I love this. Absolutely, absolutely love this. Okay. I am all 3 rolled into one. That's what I am. All right. Step number 8, our final step. Thank you for bearing with this so long, and really, really happy and hope you guys are learning and vibrantly adding to your genealogy know-how and love of your family. Okay. Step 8, avoid false hints and dead ends. Okay. As tempting as it is to accept every hint, keep a skeptical mindset. Now, I save this for last because it's very important. Okay. And I always am harping on this and harking back to this because it is very, very, very true. Okay. And ask yourself these questions. Is the timeline realistic? Very important. Because sometimes you'll have records you add in and you're like, wait a minute, I just added a birth record after an immigration record. Duh. Okay. So look at the timeline on Ancestry and say, is that realistic? Right? If a child was born a year before a marriage or a year after, or a month after, whatever, you got to ask yourself, what does that tell you? Are names, locations, and dates consistent? Okay. Very important when going through your timeline. And does this ancestor appear in multiple records? Right? So do they appear in multiple records? Which one is the real one? There are many people with many similar names going back in time. Okay, so don't confuse one person for another, someone named Michael, and someone with the last name maybe like Collins or Davis or something, right? There were probably 100 of them in any city, okay? So if unsure, here's something that you can think about, and this is what I do. Create an unlinked tree or a research branch, right? You have your main tree, but if you're unsure, you can create another branch or another tree that's unlinked or unpublished, and you can just sort of play with that tree, and then you can add the tree in later. And revisit once you gather more evidence. I have my main branch or my main tree that I use in collaboration with other serious family researchers. And I also have a separate tree just for my DNA results, okay, with a limited number of people in that tree, right? There's only a few hundred. Within my main tree that I collaborate with my cousin, there's literally over 5,000 people in that tree, okay? But just for my genetic matching, I use a smaller tree with limited results and many of those other branches of the tree, I feel like doesn't need to be a public tree. That's just for our private research, okay? We can share those with only family members. So the other one is public. So this is how I do it. You can feel free to do how you want to do or copy what I do, but you can create multiple trees, okay? It really comes down to how much you want to share and how much you want others having access to your research, okay? And I have a bunch of research reading hints on the article itself about 15 genealogy research habits that save time, how to overcome genealogy brick walls, a lot of stuff, okay? So, bonus, use DNA to break through brick walls. This is a cool idea, okay? Now, you can check out our weekly challenge. Pick one DNA match from your ancestry list and try to identify your most recent common ancestor, link them to a person in your tree, and leave a note about what you have discovered. Okay, that is it. We've covered a lot of ground today, and thank you so much for your support. I release new articles and videos every week. Articles come out every Friday online at familyhistoryfoundation.com. Tuesdays, I release videos here on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for supporting family history and genealogy. And I wish you the best and encourage you with the most heartfelt sense of profound discovery in your family genealogy research. Let me know if I can ever be of assistance in any way. And I love you. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Happy researching.